Hi college. Okay, in this video we're going to talk about triads, inversions, and learn all about figured-based symbols. So take a moment to please read through this material. Okay, college. So all of these triads below are in what position? Hopefully you said root position because we see two superimposed thirds. Take a moment and complete the blanks. And time is up, so hopefully you came up with these responses. All of the triads in the first row are minor triads. All the triads in the second row are diminished triads. Note I just put the symbol. All of the triads in the third row are major, and the last set of triads are all augmented. Note the plus sign. Let's continue reviewing. Fill in the blanks. Easy enough. When the triad appears as two superimposed thirds, the triad is said to be in root position. When the third of a triad is the lowest note, the triad is said to be in first inversion. When the fifth of a triad is the lowest note, the triad is said to be in second inversion. Moving right along. Let's circle root position triads. Let's box first inversion triads. And let's put bubbles around second inversion triads. By the way, you should note that the numbers next to the notes in the above triads denote proper piano fingering. How'd you do? Check over your work. Let's roll. Let's review some Roman numerals and keys. What we need to do here is write the key, followed by a colon, and then supply the Roman numeral after looking at the triad. Remember that triads get their name from the root note. The first row is major keys, and the second row are minor keys. Watch your clef carefully. Good luck, college. Hopefully your Roman numerals are of the correct quality. If it's minor, they should be lowercase Roman numerals. If it's a major triad, they should be capitalized Roman numerals. If the quality is diminished, the Roman numeral should be lowercase with the diminished symbol. If the quality is augmented, the Roman numeral should be capitalized with the augmented symbol, the plus sign. And let's move right on. Here we're going to identify specific names and qualities of triads in root position and inversions. We're also going to provide a Roman numeral analysis of various triads in root and inversion. We'll also be able to understand the significance of figured base and write figured base for triads using full and abbreviated Arabic numerals. We will also be completing a figured base reference chart, and we'll complete a classwork sheet where you must identify the triad and realize the figured base. So much to do and so little time. Before we go any further, please complete the following and be prepared to discuss your answers. Good luck! College, please find someone in the class and go over your answers together, and then we'll go over in about 30 seconds. College, I'm now about to reveal our answers, so check over your work and see how you did. How did you do? Hopefully really well. Let's continue. Attention, college. Let's review inversions. For each question below, we need to write A, the specific name and quality of each triad. I've provided some examples in parentheses. We also need to B, write whether the root, third, or fifth is the bottom note. And finally, C, Write whether the triad is in root position, first inversion, or second inversion. So let's do number 1 together. A is writing the specific name and quality of each triad. In order to do this, you must find what note is the root. I'll label that with an R. I've mentally rearranged these tones in my head, moved this G up here to realize that C is the root. Once I've done that, I can determine the quality based on the intervals from root to third and third to fifth. This is a C major triad, indicated as so. The bottom note or lowest note is a G. G in a C major triad is the fifth. Therefore, the fifth is the lowest note. This triad is in second inversion since the fifth of the triad is the bottom note. Please try questions 2 through 5 now, and when you get done, work with your partner and check over your answers. Good luck! Okay, college, it's time to check our work to see how you did. Please check over your answers. Notice for major triads, I used capital letters. For minor triads, I used lowercase letters. Here in example number 4, for B, I have R, which stands for root. That would be an acceptable answer, or you could put 1, because 1 is the root. RP means root position. So hopefully you did okay with that. We did not need any augmented symbols or diminished symbols because all of these triads are either major triads or minor triads. Identify the name, quality, and inversion, if applicable, for each triad below. In measure 1, that is a triad in root position, and the root is C. What is the quality? The quality is major. Measure 1 is a C major triad in root position. Try number 2 now. The triad in the second measure is an A minor triad in first inversion. Note that I've used a lowercase a to indicate minor. Try measure 3. In measure 3, we have an F major triad in second inversion. Note the capital F, which signifies major. Below each triad, we have key signatures. We have C major and A minor. Note the parentheses N signifies natural minor. Provide a Roman numeral analysis for each triad above for the specified keys. Let's do the first one together. In the key of C major, this triad in measure 1 would be what Roman numeral? It's the tonic triad, capital Roman numeral 1. If we were in the key of A minor using natural minor, what would the Roman numeral be of this triad in measure 1? This would be the major 3 chord, or the major 3 triad in A minor. Try measure 2 now. We know this is an A minor triad. In the key of C, where is the A minor triad? It is the 6th chord. It's lowercase vi because the triad is minor. If we were in A minor, what would this A minor triad be? It would be a minor 1 chord, the tonic triad. Try measure 3 now. Measure 3 is an F major triad. In the key of C major, the Roman numeral for the F major triad would be a capital IV for major. It's the 4 chord. In the key of A minor, this F major triad is 6. That's capital VI because it is major. That's some great movie music because figured bass is very epic when it comes to music theory. Figured bass, let's read. Figured bass is a kind of musical notation in which Arabic numerals, that's just a fancy word for saying numbers, and symbols are used to indicate intervals in relation to the lowest note of the triad. And I'm going to circle lowest because lowest is the key. Figured bass was widely used during the Baroque era, which ranged from roughly 1600 to 1750, as a shorthand for players of keyboard instruments. We will be using figured bass for the purpose of analysis, and if you're taking AP theory next year, we will use a lot of it in part writing, so please pay attention. Figured bass helps us to realize the quality and the inversions of triads. So I pose this question to you. Look at these 3 triads and answer this. What are the intervals above the lowest note of each of these triads? Recall that the word interval is the relationship between 2 notes. So we want to know what the interval is between the lowest note and the middle note, and the lowest note and the highest note. Well, the lowest note to the highest note is the interval of a 5th. The lowest note to the middle note is the interval of a 3, or a 3rd. In the second measure, the interval of the lowest note to the highest note is a 6, and the interval between the lowest note to the middle note is a third. In the last measure, the interval between the lowest note to the highest note is a 6, and the interval between the lowest note and the middle note is a 4th. These are figured bass numbers. Root position triads will be 5-3. First inversion triads will be 6-3, and second inversion triads will be 6-4. Let's continue our study of figured bass. Let's go back to our friendly snowman and realize that figured bass is merely a listing of the intervals that occur above the lowest note. The figures will be placed under the triad like this. The largest number of the figured bass will always appear on top. That's why the 5 is on top of the 3. Let's fill in the blank. The numbers 5 and 3 beneath a note, or triad, indicate a triad in root position. The intervals of a 5th and a 3rd occur over the lowest tone of a triad in root position. So my figured bass for all of these examples here in treble clef would be 5-3. We can show exactly how the notes are ordered in a triad by indicating the intervals above the base. These intervals sometimes are represented by the numbers 5 and 3. The numbers 5 and 3 beneath a note or triad indicate a triad in root position. The intervals of a sixth and a third occur over the lowest tone of a triad in first inversion. Let's recall. My A here in this example is the lowest note. From the lowest note to the highest note is a 6, and from the lowest note to the middle note is a 3. In this example, which I'm circling right here, we have an E as the lowest note. This triad is inverted. The C is 6 notes above the lowest note, which is E. The G is 3 notes above the lowest note, which is E. Therefore, the figured bass for this first inversion triad is 6-3. First inversion triads will always have the figured bass of 6-3. These intervals sometimes are represented by the number 6 and the number 3. So, we can fill in the blank. The numbers 6 and 3 beneath a note or triad indicate a triad in first inversion. The intervals of a sixth and a fourth occur over the lowest tone of a triad in second inversion. In this example, my lowest note is a C. This triad looks inverted. The C up to the highest note, A, is the interval of a sixth. The C, or lowest note, up to the middle note is the interval of a fourth. Let's look at the example that I'm circling. Here I have a G as the lowest tone. The E at the top is 6 notes away from the lowest note, G. That's where the 6 comes from. The C in the middle is 4 notes from the bottom note, or lowest note, which is G. That's where the 4 comes from. These intervals are represented by the numbers 6 and 4. Anytime you see 6-4, you're dealing with triads that are in second inversion. The numbers 6 and 4 beneath a note indicate a triad in second inversion. Are you with me so far? I hope so. Here's a chart having to do with figured bass Arabic numerals. And I'm going to circle or put a box around this first one right here so we can focus our attention on this one. That's clearly a C major triad in root position. This figured bass represents the full Arabic numerals for root position triads. When you see the numbers 5 and 3, that is considered to be the full Arabic numerals. Let's look at the second box that I'm circling. That's also a C major triad in root position without the figured bass. That is the abbreviated figured bass for root position triads. Simply nothing, because they're easy to pinpoint. Let's head down here to our 6-3, which I'm going to circle. So here we have our 6-3, which we now know is our first inversion triad. And we can recall that we get the 6 from the interval between the lowest and the highest note, and we get the 3 from the interval between the lowest note and the middle note. When you see 6-3, that figured bass represents the full Arabic numerals for first inversion triads. However, the abbreviated version of figured bass for first inversion triads is just a 6. And you'll more often than not just see the 6 and not the 6-3. But if on a worksheet or an assignment or a test and they ask you to provide the full Arabic numerals, then for root position triads you'll have to include the 5-3. For first inversion triads you'll have to include the 6-3. If they are asking in the directions for abbreviated Arabic numerals, then you would not write any numbers for root position triads, and you would only write the number 6 for first inversion triads. Let's focus our attention to the second inversion triads, which I will box. Let's read about that. There is no abbreviation for second inversion triads, so you always want to use both numbers 6 and 4 in the figured base. Let's recall again where the 6 and 4 came from. You take the lowest note, I'll circle it, it's a G. The interval from the lowest note to the highest note is a 6. The interval from the lowest note to the middle note is a 4. That's how we can tell that the triad's in second inversion. Why do you suppose we don't abbreviate the 6-4? Well, we're already abbreviating the first inversion triad as a 6, so we don't want to get confused, and that's why we use both numbers, both 6 and 4, for second inversion triads. So, figured base numbers usually abbreviated. There are no figured base numbers under notes or triads indicated in root position. So later on we're going to fill out a chart that has to do with this, that we can study off of. Okay, college, this is going to see if you were paying attention. What we need to do now is number 1. For all 10 examples, we have to write the letter of the root of these inverted and root position triads. And number 2, we have to write abbreviated Arabic numerals next to the letter. We're not going to write Arabic numerals for root position. And also recall that there is no abbreviation for second inversion. So let's do a few of these together. What I'm going to do first, this is how I work. This might not be how you work, but I'll show you what I do. I'm going to go through all 10 examples now and circle the root. Maybe you'll join me in that activity. By circling the root, I'll know exactly what to name the triad. Some of these I have to rearrange the tones mentally in my head to figure out what the root is. Okay, so I have circled the root. I'm not going to write my answer yet because I don't know if I want that letter to be capitalized or lowercase, because remember, it depends on the quality of the triad. So that's something we can work out later. Okay, so I'm going to start number 2. Step 2, write abbreviated Arabic numerals next to the letter. So this is where I'm writing nothing if it's a root position triad. And this is where I'm writing a 6 if I see a first inversion triad, or a 6-4 if I have a second inversion triad. So let's look at number 1 together. Number 1, I'm looking at the lowest note, and I'm counting up to the highest note. I see a 6. I'm looking at the lowest note to the middle note, and I see a 4. Remember, that is a second inversion triad, and there's no abbreviation for it, so I'm going to leave it as a 6-4. And the root, we know, is an E because I circled it. What's the quality of the triad? E, G, B. That's minor. So what I'm going to do is write a lowercase e. If that triad was major, I'd write a capital E 6-4. But this is an E 6-4, an E minor triad in second inversion. Now, let's look at the second example. So I'm just going to make a mental note that my root is B at the top. I'm looking at the lowest note of this triad up to the highest note, and I see a 6. And then I'm looking at the lowest note to the middle note, and I see a 3. But I don't want the 3 because I want to, according to the directions, write abbreviated Arabic numerals. So 6-3 abbreviated is just a 6. That is enough information right there to tell me that this triad is in first inversion when I have the 6. Now, let's figure out the quality of that triad. B is the root, up to a D, up to an F. This triad is diminished. The name of the triad is B. Since it's B diminished, I'm going to use a lowercase b, and I can't forget my diminished symbol. By seeing the B with the diminished symbol and the number 6 after it, this tells me that I'm now looking at a B diminished triad in first inversion. Let's try number 10 together. Number 10. Keep in mind, 6 through 10 are in bass clef, so that's going to play an important role. Make sure you observe your clef at all times. So let's just write my root up here. It's going to be a D. Look at the lowest note to the highest note. I'm counting 6. Look at the lowest note to the middle note. I'm counting 4. I already know now that that triad's in second inversion. There's no abbreviation for second inversion, so I'm going to write both 6, 4 right there and leave it there. My root is D, but now determine the quality of this triad. We have D, F, A. That's a minor triad, so it's going to be a lowercase d 6, 4. That tells me that number 10 is a D minor triad in second inversion. So try number 3, 4, 5 in treble clef, and try 6 through 9 in bass clef, and then we'll check our answers. If you finish early, get together with a partner and see how you do. Good luck, college. Okay, college, let's check our work and see how you did. Please draw your attention to number 3. Notice I just have in lowercase a. That's because it's an A minor triad in root position, and the directions want abbreviated Arabic numerals. If the directions said write full Arabic numerals, then for number 3 you'd write a lowercase a, 5, 3 next to it. But you don't need to. Number 4 is a G major triad in second inversion. So we have a capital G, 6, 4. Number 5 is a C major triad in second inversion. So we have a capital C, 6, 4. Number 6 in bass clef, we have an F major triad in first inversion. We only need the 6. If the directions were to say full Arabic numerals, we would need to supply 6, 3 as our answer. Number 7 is also a first inversion triad. It's C major, capital C, with just the 6 for the abbreviated Arabic numeral. Number 8, E minor. No Arabic numerals necessary. Make sure your letter E is lowercase. Number 9, capital G, G major triad in second inversion. That's a capital G, 6, 4. Hopefully you did okay. Okay, college, let's complete this chart together before we go. So, in the first column, we have a major. Okay, college, we're going to complete the following chart and use it as a study guide and a reference guide. The first row we're dealing with looks to be like root position triads. The second row we're dealing with inverted triads, and same with the last row, inverted triads. So what is the full Arabic numeral for a root position triad? That would be 5, 3. Let's head to the right. What is the full Arabic numeral of this triad that I'm circling right here? That would be 6, 3. Let's head to the right. What would the full Arabic numeral be for this triad that I'm circling now? That would be 6, 4. Let's head to the next row. Now we want to supply the abbreviated Arabic numerals. What's the abbreviated Arabic numeral for a root position triad? Nothing. We can just leave it blank. Head to the right. What's the abbreviated Arabic numeral for 6, 3? That's first inversion triad. It's just a 6. The next one's done for us because there is no abbreviation for 6, 4 second inversion triads. The name of this first triad, the name of the first triad is root position. The name of the second triad is first inversion. The name of the last triad is second inversion. The root is the bottom note of a root position triad. The third is the bottom note of a first inversion triad. And the fifth is the bottom note of a second inversion triad. If at all you had any trouble with today's video, please feel free to watch and rewind at any time and see me for some extra help because I'm always free. Thanks for watching, college. Have a great day.